after Joseph was sold down in the land of Egypt. Later, Joseph moved his father and his brothers and their families out of the land of Canaan into the land of Egypt. And while Joseph was in the land of Egypt, taking care of his family, he moved down into the best area in Goshen in Egypt. And finally, Joseph's father, Jacob, was sick. And one day Joseph took his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, and visited his father Jacob. And when he arrived into Jacob's home, Jacob made a confession to Joseph. He said, "Son, when your mother Rachel died, I was with her. We was moving from Babylon to the land of Canaan. And she went into hard labor. And the midwife, she was there, and I was with her. And she went into the hard labor, and while the baby was born, she yelled, 'Benny,' and she died." He said, "And I kept Benny with me at all times." And he said, "Joseph, when I was in the land of Canaan, God visited me, and he told me that my seed would be blessed, and the land of Canaan from east to west, north to south, all the land would become the land of my seed." And he blessed me there. And he said, "Joseph, you shall have a double portion when your inheritance enter the land of Canaan, because you was taken away from your brothers." And he said, "Joseph, I thought I would never have you again in my presence." He said, "Who are pleased with you?" So Joseph said, "These are my two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim." At that time, Jacob was blind and couldn't see. So he said, "Joseph, bring the sons near so I can touch them." So Joseph took his sons and his father held one between his knees. And then Joseph took him away. And he said, "Joseph, let me bless them." So Joseph took his two sons and he put Manasseh's head under his father Jacob's right hand, and Ephraim he put his father's hand on his left hand. And so Jacob crossed his hand and put his right hand on Ephraim's head and the left hand on Manasseh's. And Joseph said, "Not so, Father." He said, "You have your right hand on the youngest one. Your right hand should be on the left one." He said, "I know, my son, I know." He said, "Manasseh shall be great, but Ephraim shall be great up." And so he blessed each one of the sons, and then after he blessed them, they departed. So in the process of time, Jacob was dying, and he sent for all 12 of his sons to come and gather around his bedside. So all of his sons arrived, and while standing around Jacob's dying bedside, Jacob said, "You sons of Israel, children of Jacob, gather around my bed and let me bless you." So he blessed all of his sons. He blessed from Reuben right on down to Benjamin. And while he was blessing Joseph, he gave Joseph the greatest blessing. Joseph had a blessing so long. He said, "Joseph, you is a bark, fruitful bark by a well. The vines runs over the wall." He said, "Joseph, out of you, the shepherd come." He said, "The people they shoot their arrows at you. He said, but your arms were strong by the mighty hands of the Almighty God. He said, Joseph, you shall be great. Joseph, your blessings shall go to the utmost, to the hills, to the unbounded mountains, and you shall run over. He said, your blessing shall be as the crown upon your head, and upon your forehead shall be the royal crown. He said, Joseph, your brothers shall bow down unto you. Joseph, you shall be blessed, your seed. The womb shall be blessed of the women, and the breast, it shall be the breast of consolation. And he just blessed Joseph on and on to the unending blessings. And after he got to blessing Joseph, then he blessed Benjamin, the youngest son. And then he said, sons of Israel, he said, I die. He said, carry my body out of this place to the land of Canaan, into the field that my father Abraham purchased from the Hittite, and bury me with my people in the cave that is in the field that my father purchased for our burying ground. He said, my father Abraham was buried there. Isaac was buried there. Sarah was buried there. And my wife Leah, she was buried there. Then he drew up his feet in the bed, and he yelled up the ghost and died. And Joseph fell on his face on his father and wept with a loud voice and wept. And after the weeping was over, Joseph rose and he called his physician, and he said, I want you to embalm my father for 40 days. And so after the mourning of the brethren ceased, then Joseph went to the palace of Pharaoh, and he honored himself before and presented himself before the pharaohs. He said, honorable pharaohs, he said, out of all these years I have worked it from sun to sun, and I have never asked you for anything. He said, before my father died, he made me promise him that I would give him a royal funeral. And he said to the pharaohs, he said, allow me to attend my father's funeral. So the pharaohs looked at him, and the pharaohs had named Joseph Zaphnath. He said, Zaphnath, he said, if your father made you promise that you would give him a royal funeral, he said, give it to him, a royal funeral. Then the pharaohs called all of his captives and had them to prepare the chariots and horses and all the people to attend the funeral of Joseph's father Jacob and carry his body to the border of the land of Egypt that borders the land of Canaan. So they all was in the funeral section for Jacob's royal funeral.